We're here in Florissant, or specifically the Florissant Fossil Lava Beds or National Monument in Florissant, Colorado. This is quite a large area. The visitor center is up over there, about a mile away. And then you've got a lot of hiking trails on this side and then also on the other side of the visitor center. Apparently on the other side of the visitor center you have the more slightly arduous hiking trails, and then the easy ones, which is good for pretty much everyone, is this area that you see in front of us. And then about a mile away where we are right now, we're here at the Hornbeck Homestead. It says Florissant Fossil Beds National Monument. Welcome to the Hornbeck Homestead. The homestead is part of the National Monument. In 1878 is, I guess, when it was built. It's an example of the early Colorado ranch. It tells the story of a pioneer woman who lived here with her 4 children. Anyway, let's take a look. Apparently during the spring and summer there's quite a beautiful number of flowers, and of course the wildlife like the elk, coyote, red fox, black bear, bobcat, the squirrel, the badger, porcupine, mule deer, and a whole host of birds. Birds will be able to be seen over here at times. So there's the homestead. This is Arc of Heritage. Human activities in the past on Florissant Fossil Beds National Monument are part of the monument's heritage. The previous occupants of this area related to this land differently, of course. Indians lived in this landscape and made use of the land and the things that it offered for 10,000 years or more. And then later on, other economic uses in the last 200-300 years, particularly like ranching, mining, lumbering, and even fossil sowing, because this area is full of fossilized trees, specifically redwood trees. Apparently 34 million years ago, this depression that we see here was a big lake, and on the edges you had redwood forests. Today, what you can see are the remnants of some of those redwood trees, huge stumps, and of course over the millions of years these stumps have fossilized, and some of them are quite dramatically large. But you can see these all around this area. But both the Indians, perhaps, and certainly those that came after, used many of these fossilized stumps or the remnants of the trees for other uses. Yet there's still a few left completely intact, and by that I mean the stumps. And it's quite something to look at, to imagine what this place must have looked like millions of years ago, when there was a big lake over here, and the rims of the lake, instead of primarily the pine trees that you see here now, were ferns and redwoods. So here's the Hornbeck Ranch. It looks like it consists of about 4 buildings, those 1, 2, 3 smaller ones, and then the main building over there. And let's see what it says here. This over here is a picture of Adeline Hornbeck. And she was a single mother of 4, and she moved her family to this valley, to Florissant Valley, in the 1870s. Of course, few women had a chance to own property back in those days. But she filed a claim on 160 acres over here, so much of what we see around here. And within about 7 years or so, she built this house and the other buildings. And she's also acquired several $1,000s worth of livestock. She raised her 4 kids here. She even had a job at a general store in Florissant. Now, can you imagine living over here? I can. This would be, I mean, for me, a lot of fun. Even today, 130 years later or so, or 150 years later, this is a relatively quiet valley. Yeah, there's a few cars coming down the road here to the visitor center and then beyond to Cripple Creek. But it's not bad. And of course, basically, it's a very quiet place. Well, let's take a look, see if we can peek through the windows over here. I don't think it's open. But we can take a look. It's interesting also how they built these houses. Look at the foundation with the rocks below over there. And then it looks like railwood beams or ties type of lumber. And then they patched it up in between to make it well sealed against the elements. Yeah, it's closed now. Of course, in those early days, they could have sealed that with mud or other things, but in either case, I'm sure they did a good job. And this is looking through the windows over here. So that looks like kind of the living room, or what we would call a living room. There's a little fireplace, and then beyond, looks like from here, a dining room table. And let's take a look over here. So this is still the living room. This is, hopefully, maybe it will be the dining room. Let's take a look. Okay, this, hard to see. This looks like maybe a makeshift office for today. Yeah. So that could have been a bedroom. And this looks like some type of storage in the back. I keep looking at this foundation, but I like it. It's I don't know if that's a recent addition, because often in those days they didn't really put much of a foundation. But if they did, they did a great job. Alright, let's take a look. Looks like from the corner over there, I don't know if you can see, there's what looks like a kitchen and then a pantry. And perhaps a bathroom, but back in those days they probably had an outhouse. Outhouse would probably have been a building that's probably not here now. There's more storage on the side. So it was, well, I would presume that's a storage, but it looks like off and on pretty good, decent building. Now let's take a look in here and see. On this side, what do we see? And this looks kind of dark, so that might have been a bedroom as well. And this looks like the dining room and the kitchen combo. Yeah, pretty neat. And there again is the view of Florissant National Monument. So how did this place come into being? Well, and by she I mean Charlotte Hill, is credited for finding many of the fossil species over here, not just the tree stumps, but also fossilized insects and other things. For example, this one over here, as you can see, it's the famous butterfly. And the Latin is Proderosa persephonic, or no, let's try that again. Prodereus persephone. One of the finest fossils ever found, apparently, over here in the Florissant National Monument, and once, at one time, Charlotte Hills Ranch, where she raised 4 kids by herself. And she collected many of them, many boxes of fossils, particularly insects. And professors came over here and other scientists to see what she got, because she collected them and put them in a box. And when they came here, I'm sure they did their own investigation as well. According to the Fair Play Flume newspaper of June 17, 1880, it says only 2 miles from the Florissant post office are the quite famous petrified stumps. They are situated on a ranch owned by Adam Hill and are the pride of his wife, Mrs. Charlotte Hill, who has turned naturalist and has displayed at her home an elegant array of geological specimens. This place furnishes a most interesting study for the naturalist and is visited every year by large delegations from the colleges and scientific schools of the East. And that was from the Fair Play Flume newspaper of June 17, 1880. Now that was, what is that, 120, 140, almost 150 years ago. So almost 150 years ago you already had scientists combing this place. And of course there's been many, many since, I'm sure. Anyway, that'll end our visit to this part of Florissant. Over there in the distance you see the parking for this area here. And then of course there's a much larger parking area and the visitor center with bathrooms and everything right there. Those are those buildings you can see in the distance with the green roofs. And we'll see